So when Arcane Season 1 ended, we were left with Singed sitting with Warwick. And we kind of know it's Warwick because it was this big wolf creature, and that is a character from the League of Legends game. I want to tell you about Warwick's in-game backstory and kind of talk about what that means for Arcane. So in the game, Warwick was a former gangster who turned over a new leaf to try to leave that life behind, but he never could quite get the blood off his hands. And he could never remember his past life or how he even got into Singe's grasp to be experimented on in the first place. He was fitted with pumps that injected chemicals into his veins because Singed hoped to bring out the beast behind the good man that this gangster was. These chemicals ended up boosting his healing so that he could kind of regenerate while these experiments were being performed on him, until he didn't. His hands were replaced with gigantic metal claws. That chamber and the other chambers ended up injecting those chemicals into him whenever he felt hate or anger or fear or like any big emotion. Through the pain of the experiments, Warwick still tried to remember who he was, sometimes seeing flashes of knives, but also seeing flashes of a girl saying something that he would assume is a name, but he could never actually recall what that name was. And he didn't remember who this girl was either. During his experiments, he tried to resist the chemicals enough that it dripped from his eyes and mouth, and he ended up dying on the table. Because of this, Singe tossed him out and didn't realize that the death was actually what would birth the beast that he had wanted this whole time. Through death, life. So Warwick gave into the beast, not caring who he hurt in the process, because the scent of blood brought him into a frenzy. Whenever he came across criminals of Zaun, he got glimpses of his past as a criminal himself. And he would see that girl again, but mostly he would see these images of himself and he hated it. So that's when he decided that he would actually go after killers and criminals in Zaun and kill them, hopefully to make it a better place. So then we have Vander, who is the Hound of the Underground, who wanted a free nation of Zaun with Silco and became like a brother to him because of their shared mission.
A night of revelations.
He tried to lead the revolt against Piltover, and that ended up failing because he saw Vi and Powder, who had just lost their mom, and stopped fighting to protect them. After this, he ended up adopting Milo, Clagger, Vi, and Powder. Now we know that he could have adopted Vi and Powder because of a promise he made to their mom, because we now know that him and Silco and their mom were all really close friends, even going as far to giving Violet the name that she has.
I've always liked the name Violet.
Which is crazy, crazy bonkers. That, like, if they did make a promise to protect her daughters, that both of them taking one of the kids is not as crazy as we all thought it was for like 3 years. Insane. Because then it's Silco just making sure that Powder's okay because like nobody's watching her, and that wasn't good. He didn't. There's a whole thing to unpack with Silco's parenting things, and this is not the video for it. But maybe I am a Silco apologist. I could fix him. Maybe. Who knows? So while he was the adopted father of these 4 kids, he actually made a deal with the Enforcers that nobody in Zaun would actually cause trouble for them, as long as the Enforcers actually stayed out of his business. But when the kids attempt their own heist to try to steal something from Jace's lab, the Enforcers tell Vander that they need somebody to take the blame, take the fall for the crimes. And Vi wants to do that, but when Vander hears about it, he ends up locking her in a basement and going to go take the punishment anyway. And that's when Silco and his gang show up, and they have the big shimmer guy, and then they get into a fight, and then they steal Vander and they give him to Singed. And Singed starts experimenting on him a little bit. But he does break free momentarily to inject himself with shimmer, becoming this big old beast guy to go save Vi. But then he dies and falls off of a bridge, and we assume that he died there. But it could be that was that death, like Warwick needed, to then be susceptible to the experiments and then become Warwick, because Singed goes and takes his body and brings it back and does his experiments. Anyway, to do, which we've seen at like the end of a couple of episodes, but to do this experiment, Singed actually used a Merc Wolf, which is a magically altered wolf. So it's like a normal wolf. They end up being pumped with so much runic magic that they become either like a different color, or sometimes they get 2 heads, which our little guy had 2 heads. And I'm doing a video on Singed specifically, so that will actually cover why it being a magical thing is so important to his character, because that's an interesting thing. That is, I'll probably have it linked here if it comes out around when this video does. But click there if you want to see why it being a magical wolf is so important. Now we have Vander, or Warwick, actually being Warwick. And that's something that we've wanted as like a fan base for 3 years now. And that means that we get to see Vander, who is still, or Warwick that is still like frenzied by blood, kind of overcome that more than he could in the game. Because you could get flashes of like who he was, but like this one is just like werewolf rules. If it's daytime, he's fine, but at night you have to chain him up because that's when he goes crazy. We got werewolf rules, which means that he still can recognize Powder and Jinx, or whatever she's going by right now, and Vi. It also, I wonder if they'll have it into play, but he doesn't really attack innocent people once he kind of gets like the understanding of who he is. So Isha is a precious girl, and if anything happens to her, I will cry. I did cry. I've been crying. I don't think she's in harm's way because of that, but also there's the weird chemicals, so I don't know. We just don't know, but hopefully. I think Vander will have a really hard time dealing with it if that is something he has to live with, especially because it's gonna hurt his family again, so. I guess we just see where we're going from here, right? But that is Warwick in League of Legends, and that is a little bit of backstory with Vander in case you forgot. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to see our little family back together for a little bit. It's also very interesting in the way that Vi and Caitlyn has a like place to stand like on the same foot with their parents dying, but now Vander's back, so interesting. I also liked that Vi had the two wolves on the back of her jacket, which were the merc wolves, kind of. We see the parallels. The parallels are paralleling, and the Vi as Vander and Jinx as Silco parallels are paralleling, and Arcane is such a good show. But yeah, are you excited about Vander being Warwick? Have you seen it the whole time? Have you been excited about like this family getting back together? Did you think that they were gonna kill their dad immediately in that fight? Let me know in the comments down below what you think is gonna happen in Act 3 of Arcane. I'm super excited to hear your opinions. And what did you think of Act 2? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Stay geeky.